celebrating 12 incredible years of empowering automotive professionals with trusted news, insights, and strategies. Thank you for driving success with us. Here's to a future of innovation and excellence in automotive retail.
Hi everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. Do your team members have the tenacity to bring every issue straight to their manager? This can eat up a lot of your time and theirs. So what can you do about this to empower your team members to tackle the issues instead of bringing them all to you? In her third book titled The Manager's Dilemma, How to Empower Your Team's Problem Solving, executive coach and author Irial explores how leaders can better equip their teams. Welcome to the show, Irial, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. This is a problem every company suffers from, right? Because they got people and managers running to them with every kind of little problem, big and small, and it can drive an owner crazy, right? And so
it sure can.
Yeah. So talk to us. Why do you think leaders struggle to let go and allow their teams more autonomy for problem solving?
Yeah, I think some of it is habit. It's nothing, there's no nefarious reasons why. It's just habit. They tend to be, business owners tend to be good at problem solving, getting things done.
Right.
Indeed, all managers, leaders tend to be good at problem solving. That's why they get promoted, or that's why they succeed in business. So they end up sorting things out, getting things done, moving things forward.
Right.
And it just becomes habit. Somebody comes to them, they go straight into problem solving mode, and they go, oh, here you go, do this, or I'll take it. It's faster for me to take it and do it myself, or
right.
Here's the answer.
Right.
And so without realizing and with no intention of doing this, they end up, it's a faster route to the people getting the answers, and they go, I'll just hand it over. And it just becomes a habit for everybody.
That's right. That's right. And my wife, who's my business partner, says, Jim, you're just a control freak. You know, you want all of these people coming to you so you can control and solve the problems, and therefore you're really what we allow, we teach, and you're allowing these people to come to you, and you always come up with the answer, or at least the answer that you want to give, or the solution to their dilemma or their problem, and it's not good. You can't grow, you can't scale in doing that, right?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. It becomes a bottleneck, and the work that you're supposed to be focusing on, or working on the business and getting sales, whatever it is, improving processes, you don't get the time to do it.
That's right.
And it is interesting. You control freak. There are people that there might be a bit of a driver there. They're a bit of a perfectionist.
Sure.
They like control. They like it done their way. And there's also people who, if we're looking at the archetypes, there's people who like to be the hero and like swoop in and go, I'll sort it out. And that definitely shows up for some people. So again, there could be some of that going on for the business owner themselves. But I think beyond those archetypes, it is a much more predominant issue across a lot of managers, business owners across all industries.
Yeah. And it's just something, you're not building a strong team, a strong, cohesive team. And sometimes it takes a lot of trust, right? Because what'll happen often, especially in our small business here, our media company, if somebody does say, well, I'm going to come up with a solution, they often feel like they're running the risk that they're going to let me down, or my wife down, who's my partner, as I mentioned. And then if it goes into a conflict, then they never want to do it again. Then they're like, all right, I'm bringing every single situation to Jim and let him figure this out so that I don't get in trouble. So there's got to be a level of trust there, right?
Absolutely. And it is absolutely the foundation of it is the trust, and both sides. And it's about building the trust from both sides. That the business owner feels, okay, you have an understanding. I know you will diagnose it and think about it and come up with a solution in the ballpark that I would come up with, the kind of answer I'd come up with. And the individual knows that they know how the business owner is thinking. They know what's important to them. They know the kinds of questions that they would ask. So it takes time to build up that trust. And they know that, if they're more or less in the ballpark, their boss will have their back. And then, both parties will engage in the relationship and in the trust. Absolutely,
that's
trust
right.
is key.
I started asking my associates, and maybe there's other business owners that do the same, to say, well, if I wasn't here and you couldn't get a hold of me, I'm out on a desert island somewhere for the week or whatever, what would you do? And 9 times out of 10, they come up with a better solution than maybe I would have come up with.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting, that right away, I think managers want to jump right in and say, oh, do this, do X, Y, and Z, and that should work. But is that a kind of a good rule to say, if you couldn't get a hold of me, what would you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll channel what you do. They'd start kind of channeling, well, Jim would do that. What would Jim do? He'd probably do this. And so they'd end up sort of somewhere in the, or they, as you say, they come up, and it might be a slightly better version, and you might be, I wouldn't have even thought of that. Absolutely, that arises.
Sure.
It's interesting when managers come to, I've done this with quite a few groups where when somebody comes to you with an issue, like what happens in your body, what do you do? And you sort of lean forward and you start kind of, what are you doing and what's going on? And I need to, so they already go straight into problem solving. Whereas if somebody comes past you and says, I'd like to just run something past you and get your thoughts, I kind of, well, what happens in your body? And they're like, well, you sit back and you relax, and you go and work away. And so you're much more listening and kind of, what is where are you coming from? Have you thought about this? And so that's much more empowering for the individual. And it's a lot easier on the leaders or the business owner's body, because they're not going through that physiological response of like, oh, I'm on show, I have to sort this out.
That's right. That's right. No question. And that's a great technique, for sure. What are some other practical ways managers can encourage problem-solving mindsets among their team?
I suppose coming from the book, there's loads of reasons why people throw it over the fence to the business owner, because they don't know, or they don't know how to, or they don't have the time, and that whole dynamic is there. But really, people bring issues because they really genuinely have done everything they can, and they are escalating it as a true escalation. They might be keeping them in the loop, actually letting them know, I did all of this and I'm just telling you. But because they present it as a problem, the business owner goes straight into the problem solving, and they go, I'm not doing that again. Just give it to them to solve. And then the other reason is they are truly stuck and they do need a sounding board. Yeah. So even asking, recognizing kind of, why isn't somebody coming to me, but asking the person, what are you coming to me for? What's the ask from me? And out of these 3 reasons, why are you coming to me? Because then we can respond appropriately, both in our bodies and in our reactions. We can respond appropriately.
Sure. What are some mistakes that you've seen managers make when it comes to empowering their teams?
Oh, well, one of the ones, you mentioned it earlier on, delegation. We get told, oh, delegate. Now, my view is delegation is an outcome of training. So you don't just kind of go, I have this task, I want you to start doing it. Here you go. I'm delegating it to you. You need to train them and develop them up on how to do the task. So one of the things is, we get told delegate. So we delegate without actually explaining or helping them or showing them how to do it. And then they don't do it right. Mm-hmm. And then we take it back, and we're kind of, well, you can't. And then we start building up a narrative that you're not good at this, you're not good at that, you're not good at the other. And so then we stop giving them things to do, and we take stuff off them. If it starts getting complex, we take it off them. And it's not good for them. It's not good for the business owner, because they're going to just and then drown under all the things to do.
And then the other team members are all watching that, right? Because there's no secrets in business, so they're all watching that, going, "Whoop! I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to go to them or I'm never going to take on a project, and see it through because that didn't go well, right?"
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Again, the obvious one is just taking it off the individual and solving it for them, and never going back and explaining. So sometimes if it's a very fast-paced environment, you might have to, in the moment, take it from them. Yeah. But then go back later when it's a bit quieter and it's a bit calmer, and you explain what happened, why was this, what did you do, why was this the right approach to resolve the issue. And so next time, ask them what they would do differently, and get them to understand what they should do the next time that situation arises. Yeah. So we often just take it without giving them any explanation or context as to how to resolve it themselves. So that's another common.
So from your book, The Manager's Dilemma, what's the most important takeaway that you want readers to gain from the book?
I think the most important takeaway is, I'd say 2. One, the recognizing the dynamic that I keep solving my team's problems and I'm getting overloaded with them. the second part is there is a way to diagnose where any individual is and to apply an appropriate solution to helping them develop their capabilities to problem solve and to build that trust that we talked about earlier. So that definitely it is possible. That's
Yeah.
the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, for sure. Now, all of this has changed, or I should say, the impact that working remotely has had on something like this, I would imagine, is pretty substantial, right? Because you don't have that benefit of walking into somebody's office or cubicle or what have you to say, hey, let me run this by you. Here's what I'm thinking. You know, let me get your input on this. You got to set up a Zoom call, or you got to set schedule or what have you. So it really almost forces the hand of business owners to delegate and give more responsibility to their team in problem solving, does it not?
You would hope so and like to think so. But again, sometimes what people do is they don't speak up, they don't put their hand up, and they don't say anything, and they just sit on it until that Zoom call or until the weekly meeting. And then it starts kind of, well, why isn't done? Well, I didn't know how to do it. And so there does definitely need to be, I suppose, like regular check-in, even if it's like once a week, not the regular meetings, but kind of a once a week. What questions do you have? What challenges do you have? How can I help you? How can I help you through and deal with it? Aside from sort of a regular update meeting. So you kind of almost have to build that in, and that's a bit of an effort for people to start building that in, to kind of go, I can't just drop by and just say it to you. I have to formally, as you say, formally set up a meeting. But if you did it on a weekly basis, had that kind of forum to have that conversation, then it would be built into it, and it will become the second nature the way we do it.
Yeah. It seems to me that at the end of the day, and there's different personality types of leaders for sure. I'm sure some certain ones work better in this environment than others. I guess maybe my wife is right. I am somewhat of a control freak, and I want to be in on every solution so that we don't mess up the project. See, right away, I'm assuming that they're going to mess up the project. But that's probably very common, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm laughing because having the control is slightly different to solving the problem. So we can still build in the control and go, you're not doing anything until you run it past me.
Right.
As opposed to being involved in everything. So there's a subtle difference there. So you might be kind of going, look, go away, come up with a recommendation or two recommendations. What do you think we should do? Run them past me, but you're not doing anything until I've had my input, or I've run my eye over it. And what again, not taking over, but asking questions to get them thinking and kind of going, hadn't thought of that. Tell them go away, come back, or whatever, get a better, a more encompassing solution. And gradually they start coming to you and going, here's what we're thinking. And you go, absolutely, that's it.
Right.
I don't need to worry about it. That's where the trust comes in.
That's right. I had one employee that worked for me that would come to me with, hey, here's what I think we should do. And the first few times, I didn't agree with that individual on that situation. They were a young associate and they were new with the company, and I had to make the call. And I said, I hear what you're saying. I appreciate your input, but we got to go in this direction instead of your direction. And then they shut down after about the third time. They never brought again, and they just said, well, why would I? Because you never take my recommendation on the solution here. Well, they were right, but so that's kind of a challenge there, isn't it?
It is. It's a real challenge. And some of it, what I would always say to people, will be to ask questions to get them thinking of, the direction you need to go, or why their solution won't work. So asking questions to get them thinking about, have you considered this? Have you considered that? Can help them to see the bigger picture.
Good point.
And why something might not work. Because obviously you've 30 odd years experience, and they've got 3 months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to see the bigger picture of things. And so it is a very fine line, though, between having to say that's not going to work, and but I still want you to think about things and to come to me with things.
That's a great solution, actually, that you gave me there, because then it's kind of becomes self-discovery on their part to go, oh, okay, I see. Now it makes sense as to why you don't want to go in my favor on this, right?
Yeah. Now that takes time. It does take. You need to be not under pressure to be able to have that conversation, because, if we have to make the decision in 5 minutes' time, you might not necessarily be having the bandwidth to have that conversation. But again, it's that coming back later and going, the reasons were, or explaining it, that they're not just left in limbo. I always say nature abhors a vacuum and humans abhor of silence. So if we don't go back and explain the reasons why, they'll make up their own narratives.
Right.
And in your case, they made up the narrative of, I'm just not going to try and solve anything or come up with any ideas anymore.
That's exactly right. And then you've got a very unhappy employee on your hands, right? And in some
an unhappy boss as well.
That's right. That's right. So it's just not a good recipe. So, Irial O'Farrell, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're going to make it very easy for you to get this book, which is The Manager's Dilemma: How to Empower Your Team's Problem Solving, and it's by executive coach and author Irial O'Farrell. So that's a phenomenal name. I love that name. So thank you so much for joining us on the show. Very much appreciate it. And there's a link right below this video for you to get your own copy, which I highly recommend you do. If you've got a team, even if the team is 2 or 3 people, you need this book. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you stopping in.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jim. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Thanks.